Welcome to HFY Genesis. In today's story, we dive into an epic tale where humanity rises from the shadows of oppression to become a galactic powerhouse. Watch as Admiral Voss and the TSS Revenant face down the Zeltrax Dominion and see what happens when humanity takes its place at the galactic table. This is the story of survival, defiance, and the underrated power of humanity. Get ready for a thrilling journey that proves humanity is more than capable of defending itself when it chooses to fight back. Brace yourselves, because this story will leave you on the edge of your seat. The Zeltrax Dominion had never feared humanity. To them, the Terrans were insignificant, a minor species confined to their little star system, too weak to pose any threat to an empire that had ruled for over 1,000 years. But now, as Admiral Carveris of the Zeltrax High Command sat in his personal war chamber, a message played before him, one captured from a Terran distress beacon found on the ruins of Europa Station. The voice was distorted, filled with static, but the words were clear enough. This is Commander Elias Voss of the Terran Defense Fleet. We are under attack, static. Zeltrax forces overwhelming outer colonies, static. But we will not surrender, not today. Not ever. To the Zeltrax who hear this, you've made the worst mistake in your empire's history. Then came the final words that made the seasoned Zeltrax admiral shiver. Brace yourselves. The Revenant is coming. Carveris exhaled sharply, his claws tapping against the armrest of his war throne. The Revenant. He had read reports, rumors, a ghost ship, a Terran Warship that should not exist. And now, it was coming. The fall of Europa Station. 2 weeks earlier, the Zeltrax had attacked Europa Station, a major human mining and research outpost orbiting Jupiter. They had expected an easy victory. They were not prepared for what followed. The humans had fought to the last soldier, using guerrilla tactics and self-destructing facilities rather than allowing the Zeltrax to take control. The cost? Thousands of dead Zeltrax soldiers. They had won the battle, but at a cost so high that Carveris himself had called it a mistake. But it was too late to turn back. The humans had not forgotten. They had not forgiven. And now, something was coming for them. Something they had never faced before. The silent construction of the Revenant. In a hidden sector of space, deep within Terran-controlled systems, the most dangerous ship in human history was being prepared for war. The TSS Revenant was more than a battleship. It was a declaration. Unlike the bulky, slow warships of the Zeltrax, the Revenant was designed for a new kind of warfare, one that defied the outdated tactics of the Dominion. Advanced cloaking systems, capable of hiding from any known detection grid. AI-assisted targeting, with predictive calculations that allowed it to strike before the enemy even knew what hit them. Energy-dampening technology, rendering it invisible to traditional scanners. An experimental warp drive, allowing it to jump mid-battle, appearing and disappearing like a phantom. This ship would not just fight the war, it would end it. Admiral Voss, humanity's last gambit. Standing on the bridge of the Revenant, Admiral Elias Voss stared at the holographic war map, his hands clenched behind his back. A grim silence filled the command deck. The Zeltrax had made a mistake, and humanity was about to teach them why. "Status?" he asked. "All systems green, sir," replied Lieutenant Carson, his chief tactical officer. "The Revenant is fully operational. Weapons, stealth grid, warp drive, everything's ready." "Good." Voss exhaled, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on him. This was more than revenge. This was about survival. The Dominion had pushed humanity into a corner, assuming they would either submit or die. But that was the thing about humans. They didn't die easy. The first strike. As the Revenant powered up its engines, Voss gave the order that would change history. "Set course for Proxima Centauri. The Zeltrax fleet is waiting for us." He turned to his crew, his voice cold. "Let's introduce them to humanity's fury." The Revenant vanished into the void. The war had begun. "What do you think? Is the Revenant enough to turn the tide against the Zeltrax Dominion?" Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more epic HFY sci-fi stories. The ambush at Proxima Centauri. The Zeltrax Dominion's third fleet loomed in high orbit over Proxima Centauri b, a Terran colony world that had been under siege for 3 weeks. Admiral Kavaris stood on the bridge of his command ship, the ZSS Vacaris, his violet eyes narrowing as he studied the battlefield. The humans had resisted longer than expected, but their defenses were crumbling. Victory was inevitable. Or so he thought. Because something had just entered the system. A single blip appeared on the sensors. A lone warship exiting FTL at the edge of the battlefield. Kavaris sneered. One ship. What foolishness is this? His second in command, Commander Ralzek, frowned as he read the incoming data. Admiral, we can't get a full scan. It's disrupting our long-range sensors. Kavaris scoffed. Irrelevant. Order our outer patrol to intercept. The order was sent. 5 Zeltrax cruisers moved into formation, their weapons primed to erase the lone Terran vessel. A moment of silence followed. Then, the Revenant disappeared, phantom in the void. Where the hell did it go? Ralzek hissed, his mandibles twitching in frustration. Kavaris leaned forward, his claws digging into his chair's armrest. It's a trick. Humans cannot simply vanish. But they had. Then the first explosion rocked the battlefield. One of the Zeltrax cruisers detonated instantly, its hull cleaved in half by an unseen force. The Revenant reappeared behind the formation, emerging from its cloaked state like a vengeful ghost. It fired again, a concentrated kinetic lance strike, and another cruiser burst into flames, breaking apart in a chain reaction of internal explosions. Kavaris stared in horror. It wasn't just fast. It was impossible to predict, and it was hunting his fleet. Admiral Voss. The hunter unleashed on the Revenant's bridge. Admiral Elias Voss watched as the enemy fleet descended into chaos. 2 confirmed kills, reported Lieutenant Carson, his tactical officer. The rest are scrambling. Voss allowed himself a small, satisfied smirk. Good. Let them. The Revenant wasn't here for a battle. It was here for a demonstration. Voss turned to his AI systems officer, Lieutenant Ayaka Tanaka. Deploy the Black Flag protocol. Aye, sir, Tanaka confirmed. Engaging now. The Revenant's advanced cyber warfare suite activated, hijacking Zeltrax communication channels and disrupting their internal coordination. Enemy warships began firing on each other, their targeting systems thrown into chaotic disarray. Voss watched it unfold, his voice cold and precise. Now they understand what they've unleashed. The Zeltrax break panic spread like a plague across the Zeltrax fleet. We're being fired upon by our own ships, a comms officer shouted. They're inside our networks, Ralzek roared, slamming his fist against his console. Kavaris's hands shook. This isn't a warship, it's a damn predator. His mind raced. How had humanity developed such technology? They had been considered a minor race, but now here they were, tearing through the most feared navy in the galaxy like it was a training exercise. The Zeltrax were not prepared for this. Not at all. Voss delivers the message. With the enemy fleet in full retreat, Voss activated the Revenant's broad-spectrum comms array. A holographic transmission appeared on every remaining Zeltrax warship, broadcasting directly to Admiral Kavaris. Voss's face was calm, cold, and unwavering. Admiral Kavaris, he said, his voice calm but filled with quiet fury, I want you to listen carefully. You came to our colonies. You slaughtered our people. You gave us no warning, no chance to surrender. His blue eyes burned with unforgiving rage. Now you understand what it feels like to be hunted. A moment of silence. Then Voss delivered the final words that sent chills down Kavaris' spine. Brace yourselves. This is just the beginning. And with that, the Revenant vanished once more into the void. The war had changed forever. What do you think? Can the Zeltrax ever recover from this first true defeat, or is the war already lost? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more epic HFY sci-fi stories. The Ghost in the Machine. The Zeltrax Dominion had never faced an enemy like this before. They had seen brute force in war. They had fought against rebellions, planetary uprisings, and rival empires. But this was something else entirely. The TSS Revenant did not engage in open warfare. It hunted, it infiltrated, it corrupted, and at the heart of its deadly arsenal lay the Black Flag Protocol, humanity's ultimate weapon against the Zeltrax war machine. The Dominion's desperation. On the ZSS Vacoris, Admiral Kavaris paced, his claws clicking against the polished floor. His fleet had been disgraced at Proxima Centauri, and now the Dominion demanded retribution. "Commander Ralzek," he barked, turning to his second-in-command. "What do we have on this Revenant?" Ralzek hesitated before answering. "Admiral, our intelligence is still incomplete." Kavaris's eyes flashed with fury. "Incomplete? That ship wiped out half of our third fleet, and you tell me we know nothing?" Ralzek's mandibles twitched in frustration. "It doesn't fight like a traditional warship. It disappears between engagements. It moves too fast, and our weapons struggle to lock onto it. And worst of all," he took a deep breath, "it's inside our systems." Kavaris stopped cold. "Explain." Ralzek stepped forward, pulling up a holographic projection of their fleet's network. "We intercepted a cyber intrusion originating from the Revenant," he said, highlighting thousands of tiny red warnings blinking on their systems map. "It's not just attacking our ships physically, it's infecting our fleet like a virus." A sense of dread settled over the bridge. This wasn't warfare as they knew it. This was a new kind of battlefield, one the Zeltrax were not prepared for. Admiral Voss unleashes hell aboard the Revenant. Admiral Elias Voss stood at the center of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. "Phase 1 of the Black Flag Protocol is active," reported Lieutenant Tanaka, his cyber warfare officer. "We're inside the Zeltrax network, corrupting fire control, disabling fleet communications, and feeding them false targeting data." Voss nodded. "And Phase 2? Tanaka smiled. "That's where things get fun." The enemy turns against itself. The Zeltrax fleet was powerful, heavily armored, massive in size, built for overwhelming force. But it had a weakness. It relied too much on its centralized command system, a system now under human control. It started slowly. The lights flickered. Minor targeting adjustments went unnoticed. Then came the first real failure. One of their own dreadnoughts opened fire on a nearby escort cruiser. The explosion sent shockwaves through the fleet. Confusion, panic. "Hold your fire! That was a friendly! It's not responding! Its weapons are firing on their own!" Then another warship fired, this time at the Dominion's flagship. Kavaris's eyes widened in horror as a plasma lance tore through the Vacoris' shields, causing systems to flicker and burn. "We're under attack!" Ralzek's mandibles clicked rapidly, his hands desperately slamming into the console. "Sir, it's not an attack. It's a virus. Our fleet is firing on itself." Kavaris staggered back in disbelief. This isn't war." His voice was barely a whisper now. "This is a slaughter." Voss's message to the Dominion. Back aboard the Revenant, the crew watched the enemy descend into chaos. Hundreds of enemy ships were tearing each other apart, their weapons hijacked, their orders overridden. Voss exhaled. "This is the price of arrogance," he said quietly. He tapped a control panel, opening a direct transmission to the remnants of the Dominion fleet. Admiral Kavaris's horrified face appeared on screen. "You think this is war, Admiral?" Voss said, his voice calm, almost pitiful. Kavaris bared his teeth. "You coward! You use tricks, not honor. If you had any real strength, you would fight us in open battle." Voss smirked. "Honor? You didn't give the civilians of Europa Station a chance for honor. You slaughtered them, without warning, without mercy. His eyes darkened. Now we return the favor. Kavaris's rage turned to desperation. The Dominion will never surrender to your kind. Voss nodded. I don't expect you to. And with that, the transmission cut out. The Revenant vanished once more into the void. The Zeltrax Dominion was collapsing. The war had already been decided. The only question left was how long the enemy could survive. What do you think? Is the war over before it even truly begins? Will the Zeltrax find a way to counter the Black Flag Protocol? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more epic HFY sci-fi stories. The last stronghold of the Zeltrax. The ZSSS Vacoris was a monstrosity of war. A dreadnought nearly 20 kilometers long, bristling with plasma cannons, energy lances, and kinetic railguns. It was the pride of the Zeltrax Dominion, a symbol of absolute power. The kind that had crushed countless rebellions and subjugated entire species. Now, it was the last hope of a crumbling empire. Admiral Kavaris stood rigid on the Vacoris's bridge, his violet eyes scanning the fleet's formation. The battle had not gone as planned. Ships were drifting wrecks, their hulls torn apart by their own weapons, their targeting systems compromised by the Black Flag Protocol. And at the heart of the destruction was one ship. One damn ship. The TSS Revenant, a phantom in the dark, the silent executioner of the Zeltrax Dominion. Kavaris bared his razor-sharp teeth. This ends now. The Revenant stalks its prey. In the cold void of space, the TSS Revenant drifted like a ghost, its stealth matrix engaged, invisible to Zeltrax sensors. Inside the ship, Admiral Elias Voss watched the Vacoris on his holomap. He could feel the tension on the bridge. This was it. The final stand of the Zeltrax High Fleet, and humanity was about to end it. Status? Voss asked. Black Flag Protocol still active, reported Lieutenant Tanaka. Fleet comms are compromised, but the Vacoris has activated manual overrides. They're flying blind, but they're still dangerous. Voss nodded. The Vacoris was an ancient war machine, built long before the Dominion had become reliant on centralized systems. This would not be an easy kill, but the Revenant was not here for an easy fight. It was here for a message. Voss turned to Lieutenant Carson, his weapons officer. Load the Reaper warheads. Target their engines first, then their primary weapons array. Aye, sir, Carson said, his fingers dancing over the console. Voss exhaled. Time to put this beast down. The first strike. The Revenant appeared out of nowhere, its cloaking field dropping as it lined up its attack vector. The Vacoris barely had time to react. Then, impact. A pair of Reaper warheads slammed into the Vacoris's primary engines, detonating in a cascade of unstable energy reactions. The shockwave rippled across space, and the massive dreadnought lurched forward, its thrusters now completely disabled. Kavaris staggered, gripping the edge of his command throne. "Damage report!" he roared. A panicked officer shouted back, "Primary propulsion offline!" Secondary stabilizers failing. Kavaris clenched his jaw. "Number, we will not die like this." The monster fights back. The Vacoris may have been wounded, but it was not defenseless. "Target the Revenant!" Kavaris barked. "All batteries, fire!" The Dreadnought's broadside cannons erupted, filling the void with fire and plasma. But the Revenant was already moving. It weaved between the volleys, using its maneuverability and speed to avoid the worst of the fire. Still, one plasma lance grazed its hull, sending a shockwave through the Revenant's interior. Alarms blared. "Shields at 60%, Carson reported. Voss narrowed his eyes. Time to finish this. The killing blow. The Revenant disappeared once more, cloaking itself for a final approach vector. Kavaris's claws dug into his seat. "Find them, now!" His officers scrambled, their screens blinking with failed attempts to detect the Terran Warship. And then, it was too late. The Revenant reappeared directly beneath the Valkyries, its weapons already charged. Fire! The Revenant unleashed everything, a full spread of kinetic lances, railguns, and plasma torpedoes. The Valkyries shuddered violently, its armor cracking apart as its power core ruptured. Kavaris barely had time to process what was happening before the explosion consumed him. The last true warship of the Zeltrax Dominion was no more. The aftermath. The battle was over. The Zeltrax fleet was shattered, its remaining ships fleeing into deep space. On the bridge of the Revenant, Admiral Elias Voss watched the wreckage burn in the void. He turned to his crew. "It's done," he said simply. A cheer erupted across the command deck, but Voss was not celebrating. He knew this was not the end. It was just the beginning, because now the galaxy knew what humanity was capable of, and they would either kneel or burn. What do you think? With the Valkyries gone, is there anything left to stop the Terran war machine? Or is humanity just getting started? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more epic HFY sci-fi stories. The Ashes of the Dominion. The Zeltrax Dominion had never suffered a defeat of this magnitude. Their flagship, the Valkyries, had been reduced to debris. Their fleet, once an unstoppable force, had been shattered. The Dominion had ruled for 1,000 years, and in a single battle, humanity had ripped that legacy apart. Survivors fled into deep space, their ships running on emergency power, transmitting distress signals that no one would answer. And in the void above Proxima Centauri, surrounded by the wreckage of an empire, the TSS Revenant stood alone, undefeated, unmatched, and unchallenged. But Admiral Elias Voss wasn't celebrating, because he knew this war was far from over. The galaxy reacts. The destruction of the Zeltrax High Fleet did not go unnoticed. From the Yorvani trading guilds to the Valkyrie hegemony, news of humanity's impossible victory spread like wildfire. The Galactic Council, an assembly of the most powerful civilizations in the Orion Arm, had gathered in an emergency session. Holograms flickered in a massive circular chamber, dozens of alien species, each speaking over the other. "We need to act," an Aelith diplomat hissed, his serpentine form coiling in frustration. "The Terrans have proven themselves a threat to galactic stability." A reptilian Jorlan warlord slammed his claws onto the table. "The Dominion was a tyrant, and humanity removed them. Why should we interfere?" "The issue is not the Zeltrax," a Valkyrie senator argued. "It's the fact that the humans did it alone. No empire has ever stood against the Dominion and survived, let alone annihilated them." Silence settled over the chamber. Because it was true. The humans had done the impossible, and now they were the single greatest variable in the galaxy. The Revenant's mission changes. Aboard the TSS Revenant, Admiral Voss stood before his senior officers. "We've crippled the Dominion," Voss said, his voice measured. "But this fight isn't just about them anymore." He tapped a holographic map, showing red markers appearing across multiple systems. "Intelligence reports indicate that factions across the galaxy are now debating whether to ally with us or destroy us." Lieutenant Carson frowned. "We just saved half of these species from the Dominion. Why would they turn against us?" Voss gave a humorless smile. "Because we changed the game." He looked at each of his officers. "They see what we did to the Zeltrax, and they're terrified." He took a breath before delivering his next words. "Some will come to us seeking an alliance. Others will decide that humanity must be stopped before we rise any further." His voice hardened. "We will be ready for both." The war shifts. The galaxy was at a crossroads. The Zeltrax Dominion was gone, but in its place, 100 new conflicts threatened to erupt. Some empires welcomed humanity's rise, others began mobilizing their fleets. And in the darkness, remnants of the Dominion survivors swore vengeance, plotting in the shadows, waiting for their chance to strike. But one thing was certain. Humanity was no longer a minor species. They were a power unto themselves, and the Revenant had just begun its war. What do you think? Will humanity lead the galaxy into a new era, or will their rise trigger an even greater war? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more epic HFY sci-fi stories. The Last Stand of the Dominion. The remnants of the Zeltrax Dominion had gathered for one final, desperate stand. After the fall of the Vacoris and the destruction of their high fleet, the surviving warlords of the Dominion had fled into deep space, rallying what forces remained. Now, in a last-ditch effort to reclaim their power, they had assembled their Doomsday Fleet, a force consisting of over 200 warships, including 3 remaining dreadnoughts, all converging on the Sol system. Their objective was clear: destroy Earth. Wipe out humanity's homeworld in a final act of vengeance. If they couldn't rule the galaxy, then they would burn it down with them. The Revenant waits. In high orbit over Earth, the TSS Revenant floated in absolute silence, hidden behind its cloaking field. Inside, Admiral Elias Voss stood at the center of the bridge, his hands behind his back. His eyes locked on the holographic display showing the enemy fleet. "They're coming," Lieutenant Carson muttered, his voice laced with tension. Voss didn't blink. "Let them." His officers exchanged glances. A single Terran warship against an armada of 200. The odds were beyond suicidal. But the crew of the Revenant didn't flinch. They knew something the enemy didn't. They weren't alone. Voss turned to Lieutenant Tanaka, his cyber warfare officer. "Is the package ready?" Tanaka smirked. "Locked, loaded, and waiting for your signal." Voss exhaled. The enemy thought they had come to destroy Earth, but they had just walked into a trap. The battle begins. The Zeltrax fleet emerged from FTL, appearing like a storm of steel and fire in the void over Sol. The lead dreadnought, ZSS Kraven, transmitted a message across all channels, the voice of the last surviving High Warlord, a monstrous creature known as Vornak, the Unyielding. "Humans, your existence ends today. Your homeworld will burn, and the Dominion will rise again." But before he could finish, his communications cut to static. The Revenant had already struck. The Black Flag unleashed. At that moment, the Black Flag protocol activated in full force. The Zeltrax ships began turning against each other. Weapons malfunctioned. Shields dropped without warning. Engines shut down mid-maneuver, sending massive warships colliding into one another. The battlefield turned into a nightmare of chaos and betrayal. One of the Dominion's own dreadnoughts, the ZSS Kral, suddenly fired its main plasma cannon into its own fleet, obliterating 3 cruisers in a single shot. Vornak roared in rage and confusion. "What is happening? Stop firing on our own ships!" But no one could, because the Revenant was no longer just a warship. It was a plague. It was inside their systems. It was ripping the Dominion apart from the inside, the final kill. While the enemy fleet crumbled, the Revenant decloaked, emerging from the shadows like a death knell. "Target their flagship," Voss commanded. "No survivors!" The Revenant's weapons roared to life, unleashing a storm of plasma torpedoes, railgun slugs, and kinetic lances. The Kraven, last dreadnought of the Dominion, never stood a chance. Explosions ripped through its hull, tearing it apart, deck by deck. Vornak's final transmission was nothing but a scream of defiance before his ship erupted into flames. And just like that, the Zeltrax Dominion was no more. The galaxy watches. The battle had been broadcasted across the galactic network. Every empire, every species, every ruler in the galaxy had seen it unfold. They had watched as a single Terran warship annihilated the last remnants of what was once the most feared empire in the Orion Arm. The galaxy fell into silence. For the first time in history, humanity was feared. They had been underestimated, ignored, treated as nothing more than a minor species. Now, they were a power no one could deny. Voss delivers the final warning. The Revenant transmitted a message on all frequencies. Voss's face appeared, his expression cold, his voice calm yet absolute. The war is over. The Dominion is dead. He paused, his piercing gaze staring into the soul of every ruler, every warlord, every politician watching. Let this be a lesson. Humanity does not start wars. He leaned forward. But we sure as hell finish them. The transmission cut out, and with that, the galaxy changed forever. What do you think? Is humanity now the dominant force in the galaxy, or have they just painted a target on their backs? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more epic HFY sci-fi stories. The silence after the storm. The Zeltrax Dominion was no more. Their fleets had been shattered, their warlords executed, and their homeworlds left drifting in ruins. But despite the overwhelming victory, the TSS Revenant did not return to Earth in triumph. There were no cheers on the bridge, no cries of victory, just silence. Admiral Elias Voss sat in his quarters, staring out of the viewport as the stars drifted by. The war was over, but at what cost? The price of victory. The galaxy was changed forever. Before, humanity had been ignored, a minor species, a footnote in galactic history. Now they were the most feared power in the Orion Arm. Some alien nations had already sent envoys to the Terran High Command, desperate to forge alliances before it was too late. Others saw humanity's rise as a threat, an empire in the making. Whispers of a coalition forming against Earth had already begun. Voss knew what was coming next. This wasn't the end of war. It was only the beginning. The weight of command. The door to his quarters hissed open, and Lieutenant Ayaka Tanaka stepped in. "You missed the debriefing," she said, crossing her arms. Voss didn't look away from the viewport. "Let me guess. High Command wants us back at Luna Base for a victory parade." Tanaka sighed. "More like a political nightmare. Some senators want us to lead a new military expansion. Others think we should lay low and rebuild." Voss chuckled darkly. "We show the galaxy we can fight back, and now they want us to conquer it." Tanaka sat across from him. "You knew this would happen, Elias. The second we took down the Valkyries, the entire balance of power shifted. We didn't just win a war. We rewrote history." Voss sighed, rubbing his temples. "I just wanted to protect our people." Tanaka shook her head. "And you did. But now every empire out there is asking themselves the same question." She leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are the humans the new dominators of the galaxy?" Voss looked at her, his expression unreadable. Were they? Had humanity, in its quest for survival, become the very thing it had once feared? The future of humanity. Aboard the Revenant, the crew carried on their duties, but a new tension filled the air. They had won, but they were alone now. There was no alliance to protect them, no galactic order to mediate disputes. Earth stood on the precipice of either galactic unity or an inevitable war for dominance. Voss exhaled and stood up, looking at the holographic star map in his quarters. "Send a message to the fleet," he said. "We're not going back to Luna Base yet." Tanaka raised an eyebrow. "Where are we going?" Voss tapped the map, highlighting a distant system at the edge of known space. "We're going to find out who's making moves against us," he said. He turned to her, his expression steeled. "If war is coming, I don't want to be reacting to it. I want to be ahead of it." Tanaka nodded and walked off to relay the order. Voss turned back to the stars. The war against the Dominion had been humanity's fight for survival. But now, it was a fight to decide what kind of future they would forge, for better or for worse. Epilogue. A galaxy holds its breath. Across the stars, leaders of alien empires, warlords, and diplomats watched the aftermath of humanity's war. Some saw opportunity, an alliance with a powerful new force. Others saw a threat that had to be eliminated before it was too late. But no matter what they believed, one thing was certain. The galaxy would never be the same again. Because humanity had arrived. And they weren't going anywhere. What do you think? Is humanity destined to become the galaxy's dominant force, or will other empires rise up to challenge the Terran war machine? What would you do if faced with impossible odds? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more epic HFY sci-fi stories. Your support means everything as we continue bringing you incredible tales of human strength, resilience, and survival across the stars.